You ready? Welcome to the May 19th, 2020 Board of Commissioner meetings. Please silence your cell phones, pagers, and other electronic communication devices. Agendas are located in the back of the chambers. We do have speaker request forms. If you'd like to fill one out and speak today, please hand those to Ms. Holly at the left of the dais. And next, we'll have moment of silent reflection and pledge allegiance led by Commissioner DeSanto.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll have the review and approval of the agenda. We do need to move one item to move to remove item 13A for one motion. Commissioner Drews, please.
I would also move to hold executive session immediately after the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can you remove item 13B as well?
13A and B, Ms. Holly?
Please.
Okay. And so do we have a motion to remove item 13A and B in executive session moved up to after consent agenda?
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Drews.
Second.
Second by Commissioner LaCroix. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Holly, for the consent calendar.
Good morning, Commissioners. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses the consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda contains the following items. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of May 5th, 2020. Number 6 is to approve the renewals of the retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine licenses as presented and to release the licenses upon payment of appropriate property taxes. Number 7 is to schedule a public hearing at 9:15 a.m. on June 4th, 2020 for budget supplement SP 20-008 for the general fund sheriff's office budget. Number 8 is to declare surplus for the purpose of trade or disposal or sale or disposal, one Glock 19 serial number BCHV 831. And finally, number 9 is to recognize and thank the volunteers for the month of April 2020.
Thank you, Ms. Holly. Is there anyone from the public who wish to remove any items from the consent agenda, 5 through 9? Is there any commissioners who wish to remove any items from the consent agenda, 5 through 9? If not, a motion, please.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner LaCroix, second by Commissioner DeSanto. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, we will have executive session. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Move to go in executive session.
Second.
Drews, second by Commissioner DeSanto. And we do have SDCL 1-25-2-1 and 125-2.
Personnel matters. Yep.
Personnel, yeah. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Motion to come out of executive session.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Moved by Drews, second by DeSanto.
DeSanto.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Drews.
I'd make a motion to approve the reclassification of 3 internal applicants for the sheriff's office, 1 booking technician, 1 detox technician, and 1 medical technician to the position of correctional officer effective May 31, 2020.
Motion by Drews,
Second.
second by LaCroix. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner LaCroix, please.
I'd make a motion to authorize the Highway Department to advertise for the hire 1 highway foreman for the Hill City Division and backfill any position left vacant should the position be filled with an in-house applicant from the department.
Motion by LaCroix,
Second.
second by DeSanto. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, we're on regular agenda items. We're on the assignment agreement B1 development. Ms. Joan, do we have Paul Bradsky on the line? Motion or discussion on this?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner LaCroy.
I read through this. I think this is standard procedure and it's not going to have any effect on us. It's actually a safeguard to the county. Jay?
Morning, Commissioners. Jay Alderman with State's Attorney's Office. I did look at the assignment agreement, and I know the information that came with it in your packet is accurate. Nothing changes unless the bank directs that they want to receive the payments directly, in which case the auditor would just simply start sending those increment revenue payments to the bank.
Okay.
It's just a protection. It's a requirement the bank is putting on as the lender to the developer. And the developer is like, we're perfectly fine with that, so.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Did you have a follow-up, Commissioner?
I was just going to move for approval, but
Okay. Commissioner.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by LaCroy, second by Ross Connect. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Just telling me, move forward. Item 11 is request for variance of ordinance 14 and approval of second approach. Mr. Harold Dodson. Sir? Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Harold Dodson. I live at 10030 Pioneer Avenue. I'm here to request a variance to ordinance 14 to put in a second approach to facilitate a driveway to a proposed garage.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Address any of your concerns or questions?
Joe from Highway, do you have any concerns?
Good morning, Commission. Joe Miller, Pennington County Highway Department. Yeah, we do have one concern on it, as kind of discussed here with Ron Ross Connect, the corner clearance. The proposed approach is very close to Highway 44 and very well could cause issues. Say he comes on with a camper or a trailer or something and needs to get into the approach there. There's a potential that he can back traffic up onto Highway 44, causing a traffic hazard or an issue there. Mark's got the traffic or the corner clearance is what, 225 feet? So that corner clearance, what that means is, if we can pull it up here.
Joe, is there a better solution for Mr. Harold?
Essentially what he needs to do is just move that approach. You're going to have to construct some more or a longer driveway essentially, but it shouldn't hinder where you're putting the garage. You're just going to have to move your approach
Further
south, I believe.
Yes.
At least 225 feet, so it's past that corner, to allow traffic to stack up behind you and not cause a hazard on the Highway 44.
So can we continue this and you work with Harold and then bring this back for us? Is that okay, Harold?
I think as long as you put in the motion
To make a
that
condition.
Madam Chair.
that it may be, go ahead.
Madam Chair.
Sir.
So, Harold,
Yes.
after looking at it, I totally agree with what Joe Miller is saying. Do you have an issue with moving it?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Ross
I'll
Connect.
make a motion that we approve, as long as it adheres to the recommendations of the Highway Department.
And hold on one second. Bill, did that require a culvert as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Not at the road? No, everything kind of drains. Okay, so no culverts needed.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I will offer, I did not include a culvert in the drawing that I presented. There's a little low spot there that will require some sort of drainage underneath the driveway, and it'll run water down to my apple trees that are down in that little swale.
So if you work with the Highway Department, just call Joe. Joe will give you his number, and then they'll make sure they lay it out with you right, and then you should be okay, because we just approved that you could do that according to the Highway Department standards.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harold.
Sure. Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Items from Auditor, please. No, just kidding.
Okay. I can go away.
I could go away. Miss Cindy.
Good morning. Cindy Moeller, Pennington County Auditor. As I have laid out in my memo, I'm requesting to fill an open position within my office. I actually was lucky enough to hire a temp that caught on to exactly what we were doing with the election. She's kind of been a godsend for us. And with approval of this, I plan to make her a permanent employee if she accepts the offer.
Miss Cindy, is that in your 10% cuts, or are you adding to your budget by 30,000 is what you said?
I'll be splitting this 30,000 between elections and auditor. I've kind of moved some staff around, so it'll be a little bit of increase to both.
Okay. Commissioner?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner LaCroix.
I'd move for approval.
Second.
Moved by LaCroix, second by Drews. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Next is a public hearing, Miss Cindy.
Yes, this is a supplement 20007, and it's a supplement to the jail budget and the debt budget. This is a bookkeeping action, I guess you'd say. We need to make sure that we account for the lease purchase properly in our financials according to the Department of Legislative Audit. This is the way that we need to do this, is by supplementing the entire amount of the purchase to the budget, because the product was purchased this year. And then we also need to set up the debt service account. So there we need this smaller supplement to the principal for the lease payment and the interest on that lease payment.
Thank you, Miss Cindy. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner LaCroix.
move for approval.
Moved by LaCroix,
Second.
second by Drews. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 13, we have removed A and B, so we're on number 14, items from emergency management. Dustin Willett.
Good morning, Chair, Commission. Dustin Willett, Pennington County Emergency Manager. So item A, really no surprise. We've always expected, anticipated, and known that COVID-19 infections would begin to move through our community, and the numbers bear out that we're starting to see that. Our office is again, anticipating that we're seeing the beginnings of this virus move through our community. That being said, one of the messages that we've been pushing out to our stakeholders during the communications that we have, and will continue to do that, is while nobody wants to get sick and nobody wants to see their loved ones get sick, and while we need to do our due diligence in protecting vulnerable and at-risk populations, the most prudent planning moving forward is anticipating that this disease is going to move through our community. So even within the EOC, we're planning on contingency planning on what happens when some of our folks become ill, and we're just expecting that some of our folks will become ill. So our message right now is plan on this disease moving through our community at this point. Nobody wants to get sick, but understand the reality that the workforce is anticipated and expected to be impacted. So the prudent planning is not we can't get sick and we've got to keep it out and we just can't function if we're sick. People need to at least acknowledge the fact that their workforce may become impacted and do some planning and some contingency planning on how to deal with those illnesses when they move through the workforce. Commissioner Roskinek continues to provide some really valuable graphic representations of what the virus is doing across the state in western South Dakota. We do some supplemental work to that within the EOC, but they've been incredibly valuable. So I just wanted to thank Commissioner Roskinek for continuing to send those out. And again, one of the things, and this has gained some traction in the media, which is good, there's a lot of, even when I read the articles in the Rapid City Journal, they talk about the cases coming down in the state. And so I think, again, that provides maybe a false narrative of exactly what's going on in the state. Overall cases are dropping because some of our hotspot spikes are down. So again, if we take one of the graphs that we produce is, we take as best we can, all the processing plant numbers, and there's a couple of those, but when you take those clusters, those concentrations of infections out, it's a as expected, pretty obvious and upward trend. So we're on the upside of our curve, has been so popular in the media. The silver lining is the community's diligence, the social distancing strategies, the implementation of infection control measures across the community. Right now, most of the stakeholders agree that we have positioned ourselves well for not overloading the healthcare system, which was always one of the primary goals. Was we don't want to overload our capability in this community to treat the severely ill. And I think, I believe, and a lot of other people believe, that we are well positioned to meet that, which is fantastic news. The infection will move through the community, but we're pretty confident that our healthcare system will be able to serve the public well as that infection moves through. Before I move on to item B, I'd be happy to stand for any questions you may have specific to
Madam
COVID
Chair.
update.
Commissioner Roskinek.
Dustin, under Tier 3 identifies 20 beds. Now, someone goes in there and they show symptoms. Do they have to stay there for 14 days? I mean, they can't just stay there for a few days, get some meals, and turn around and walk out?
Commissioner Roskinek, that's item B.
Oh.
Sir, if I'm correct?
Happy to answer that question now if you'd like me to.
Okay.
We'll go on to that after we're done,
Okay.
sir. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll circle back to that.
I'll pull the question.
Update from any of the cities around Pennington County, any updates from them?
So, outside of Rapid City, which still has some very specific restrictions in place and enforceable, all the other communities have at this point gone, I won't say fallen back, they've moved to simply adopting the recommendations set forth by the governor's office. So that standard language that was put forth from Governor Noem's office about how to best implement infection control standards has basically been adopted by all the other communities in Pennington County. So nobody is, outside of Rapid City, nobody is forcing closures or forcing or regulating or I don't know what the right word is. Enforcing is probably the right word. They're not enforcing any standards. They're just promoting the language from the governor's office in terms of infection control and social distancing.
So the federal and the state parks, they're all opening at this time?
In different capacities. So places like Badlands, that there were never barricades. They were always allowed to be in the park. In terms of what's being staffed and are the entrance booths, are they collecting tolls? I don't believe they have opened to that level yet, but they're certainly still allowing visitor access. Same thing at Rushmore. Rushmore is planning their season. They're opening the parking structure, will be staffed and opened. And I don't think concessions is necessarily up yet, but certainly plans in the works.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I don't believe the Badlands Visitor Center itself is open for walkthrough and that kind of stuff. And same thing with Mount Rushmore. I was just up there a couple of days ago.
In the campgrounds.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix?
Well, thank you, Dustin. I think your presentation was good. I mean, right off the bat, I think from the very beginning was to get our medical and hospitals prepared. They weren't prepared. And I think our community did a good job of giving them that time to do it. I will express that I hope everybody stays cautious because as long as this has been going on, I think a lot of people are getting relaxed on some of the methods. But I have been to a couple of establishments where, and they're following the guidelines at every other table. I mean, they're doing a good job and to treat the customers and be able to follow the CDC guidelines. So, but that's my only fear is that we get too relaxed because it's been going on for so long. But the businesses I've visited are doing very well.
So some of the projections that we are using locally, so West River, Pennington County, some of the projections that we're looking locally in order to try to estimate what the impact's going to be, the number right now they're using for social distancing compliance. So you look at that whole thing of normal social distancing or infection control measures, the numbers that we're using in our models are based on 50% compliance. So the assumption in generating those numbers is that half the people are following guidelines and the other half aren't. And that's the mathematical assumption that's being made in our models, and we still look okay using those models. So, but yeah, that's a very valid fear, and I think we certainly see that. And there's certainly a backlash against some of the infection control strategies. But hopefully, the other thing is as this infection moves through the community, as we see it play out in the media, I think people will become, again, they might have become a little complacent or at least tired of the infection control strategies, but as they see the infection numbers move through the community, hopefully they become vigilant once again and employ some of those infection control strategies.
Or affect somebody they know.
Yep.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner DeSanto.
just from my observation of at least in grocery store situations, I'd say it's a much higher than 50% that are paying attention to CDC guidelines. And the fact that, well, Safeway, for example, they've got a person stationed at the cart area that literally cleans every single cart every single time it's returned back into and I'm seeing a tremendous number of people wearing masks and that kind of thing. So
get dirty looks if you go the wrong way in the aisle.
Right, and there's sanitizer at each self-checkout to use as well, and they're replacing the plastic covers, I think, every 15 minutes at Safeway. So,
one item of maybe interest to the commission is through, it was ExxonMobil through FEMA, but we have some large totes of hand sanitizer that we're providing to first responder, government healthcare, dental offices, medical offices. But just so that the commission is aware, I think we've already distributed about 400 gallons of hand sanitizer through emergency management. So, and we've got some more to go. Again, great partnership, but those things continue to just kind of pop up, and we do our best to distribute to where it's needed in the community. But
Thank you.
Mark Enright is a official hand sanitizer dispenser person. So,
He's got a new title. Do we have
Jack of all trades.
Do we have to put him up in a different position?
Nope, he's doing great. Any other questions on item A?
No. Item B.
So item B is the funding of the emergency homeless shelter cost share with Rapid City. So I visited with City Council last night as it was brought forward from Mayor Allender, and the Rapid City Council agreed to provide $75,000 of the $150,000 ask. And what this is we built a temporary emergency homeless shelter at Rushmore Hall, and we were hopeful that some grant funding would materialize in order to cover operations. That grant funding may still materialize, but the timeline for that grant funding is not compatible with having that facility ready to serve the public as we need it to serve. So we can stand it up now. We're ready to help if needed, but the operational costs basically need to be backstopped. And so the stakeholder group that put that together, including the Rapid City Police Department, Rapid City Fire Department, Pennington County Sheriff's Office, my office, and elected folks both with the county and the city, have through conversation agreed that government is probably the right entity to fund this right now, and I'll explain that in that. The money we've used so far to build that out was by and large graciously donated by Alan Solano and the John T. Vukorovich Foundation. Incredible generosity, and we leveraged that money to build the facility as it is. But there are, and again, I've said this multiple times before this commission, we can't do things just because we expect to be reimbursed. We can't do things with the expectation of reimbursement. We have to do things knowing that it's the right thing to do and be willing to do it regardless of any reimbursement. That being said, most of these costs we anticipate to be recoverable through some mechanism. There's multiple mechanisms already in play that we know some of these costs will at least be eligible for, and there are several others that are hopeful and or expectant, including the original grant that we were chasing on this. So there are multiple funding sources and certainly multiple opportunities for reimbursement down the road. But that spending authority needs to be here now in order to operationalize that shelter should it be needed in the community. And the numbers seem to indicate that there may be a need sooner rather than later. So the ask from the commission is for a $75,000 spending authority. And again, the commission took that out of reserves. I know I visited with Cindy, and there's probably more work to be done on where that money would come from and how that money would be allocated. But the ask is for the county commission to contribute $75,000 to the operational cost of that shelter.
I thought Barry said he was giving it to us. Oh, you're not, Barry?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Drews.
I would make the motion that the county match the city with the $75,000 ask relative to the temporary emergency homeless shelter in Rushmore Hall.
Through contingency.
And if that's, do we need that on there?
No.
No, we don't need that on there. So
Second.
Okay. Motion by Drews, second by LaCroix. Any questions? Commissioner Ross Connect, that tier 3 question you have?
I'll restate that question then, Dustin.
So the tier 3 is confirmed COVID positive. We know that they have the infection. We know they're ill. It's not a medical facility. We're not providing treatment. We're providing a supportive place to convalesce. We want these people to get better in the best environment that we can reasonably provide for them. In terms of keeping them there, so there are conversations ongoing between state attorney groups across the state of South Dakota, all the different state's attorneys, and the sheriffs as well, in terms of how best to approach noncompliance. There have been a very small number, single-digit numbers of non-compliant people across the state. So when people have the infection and they're told to isolate, they're told to quarantine, almost everybody is. The non-compliance that has presented itself on very small occasion can result in a public health order from the health department. The health department has the jurisdiction to legally say you need to quarantine, you need to isolate. And in the cases of non-compliance, they are willing and have issued those public health orders. Those public health orders then are enforceable through law enforcement and the judiciary, the state's attorneys and the sheriffs. Now, to what level they're enforceable and how that looks is different, and it's case by case. They've used some electronic monitoring on the eastern side of the state to help enforce compliance. Our approach right now with the facility at Rushmore Hall is to, again, within reason, provide an environment. These people are ill and need to recover, so they're not necessarily at their full activity level because of the illness, because they need to recuperate. But our approach right now is to make that environment as supportive as possible so that they want to stay and recover. Will they be allowed to leave? That would be worked out on a case-by-case basis with the sheriff's office and state's attorney. But right now, I would say that they would probably be allowed to leave, but we would do everything in our power to convince them, help them, find a solution for them to keep them and the rest of the community as safe as possible. But we don't plan on, handcuffing anybody to a cot. So.
Oh, that was my question, so appreciate it. Just want to make sure that $150,000 is being spent effectively, that's all.
Understood?
Sure.
Commissioner Drews.
I just want to reiterate what Dustin said. This originally was established and set up by the grant from the or money from the Vikurovich Foundation, and we owe a debt of gratitude to Alan Solano for moving forward with that. Sounds like more than likely, if there's any reimbursement that can come back from this, that nonprofits would not be eligible, so they're not eligible for any kind of reimbursement, and that's really why it probably should fall back on the government entities as at least fronting the money, and hopefully at least a portion of it, if not all of it, will be reimbursable if it needs to be used. So, thank you, Dustin.
So, Miss Cindy, can you tell me, what do you mean by reserves? Is it the money we put in the 3.8, or where's the 75 coming from?
This would come from the unassigned reserves, or you could use it out of your contingency budget.
Okay,
And until when I spoke with Dustin, I said, until we know exactly where this is gonna go, maybe have a little bit better feel for how much we're going to spend, we'd kind of wait and do the accounting side of it later, when we have a little better feel for what's going on, and then we can decide whether that needs to be a budget supplement from unassigned fund balance, from the general fund, which would result in an operating transfer from general fund,
right,
or from the contingency fund.
okay. Thank you. I just didn't know if we needed a motion where we were bringing it
Not
from.
at this time.
Thank you, Miss Cindy. All right, so we do have a motion and a second.
Madam
Sorry.
Chair.
Yep.
Thanks
Commissioner
for that
Gray.
question. I appreciated that because I was wondering how much was in the contention, where it's going to come from. And I take it, Dustin, that you're going to keep very good track of where the money is going, because it has to be followed in order to be possibly reimbursed.
I've got not only the oversight that my staff, Alexa and I and Pepper all provide, but I've got two folks currently working graciously from the Rapsey Fire Department. The fire department is providing for their overtime on their days off to come in and help. But I've got two folks that our term under the National Incident Management System is there are finance section chiefs, and one of their jobs, one of their primary jobs, is simply accountability, making sure that we have everything in the right form and format, that we've stepped through all the hoops of the grant programs that we know about in order to best position ourselves for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I just echo what Mr. Drew said. You know, I mean, the Courage Foundation and the support in our community is outstanding for stepping up, and also all the entities working together for this. I mean, there was a lot of people who come together to make this happen. Faith-based, nonprofits, city, county, emergency management, and I think you guys did a good job getting it prepared.
Certainly team, one
Thank
team,
you.
one fight.
Thank you, Dustin.
Okay.
We're good. We already, first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Let's see, items from Equalization. Gordon?
Good morning, Gordon Wendell from Department of Equalization. We would like to request an abatement in the amount of $49 for mobile home parcel ID 8009309, which has been deemed uncollectible by the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ross Connect,
Second.
second by LaCroy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 16. Thank you, Gordon.
Good morning, Commission. Joe Miller, Pennington County Highway again.
You're doing a report for us.
Yep, as requested by Gary Drews, we put together a presentation on the conditions of our roads and bridges here in Pennington County. With that, we'll get started here. That's it. All right, so on our official highway system, we have 836 miles of total road. 343 miles of that is hard surface. That's either asphalt concrete, asphalt surface treatment, which is a chip seal, as Deb, Gary, and Ron witnessed last year. That's just putting that surface over a hard base or a gravel surface. We have 127 bridges, and I think the culverts is actually a little bit low. I think we've got between 3,500 and 4,000 culverts on our road system, so that's quite a bit to maintain. And we've got 143 livestock guards on that 836 miles. So, as you can imagine, it's quite a bit of road to maintain with about a $9.5 million operating budget.
I ask you something?
Yes.
When you're doing the bridges and different culverts and different things, do you add the totals up that all those would possibly cost for the taxpayers if we did them? I mean, like some of the roads you're not going to know until you do them, but culverts and the livestock guards and some of the bridges on average. So
an average bridge is about $500,000 if you need to replace it. You know, there's some that are cost less than that, some that cost more than that. You know, the South Rochford Road Bridge is going to be about $800,000.
right.
You know, the one we did last year was 172. If we did it under normal circumstances, a one-lane bridge probably cost us 225, 250. So you got that average. If you use an average of $150,000 or $500,000 to replace all of those bridges, you're talking $63.5 million.
Okay. I think for the general public, that would be a good thing to add to that, you know, if we did the 127 bridges. Not that you do them all in 1 year, but these are the costs to us. So then when we move forward on other things that we might move forward with, that they have those cost totals and know that, you know, 10 million or 15 million doesn't go too far in a budget when these are the costs.
Correct. Yeah, and just another piece of that, you know, we've got 343 miles of hard surface. On average, our asphalt overlays have been costing right around that $100,000 to $110,000 here the last 3 or 4 years. So if you take 343 miles of hard surface, that's another $34.3 million.
How about the culverts?
The culverts, there's so many anomalies and so many different scenarios. Mark could probably tell you one. What road is that one that's super deep that we did 5-6 years ago out in Wall? What's that, Bill? Kelly Hill. You know, that was a whole summer project to replace one culvert because it was 70 feet underneath elevation under the road surface. So there's, with the culverts, it could add up to millions of dollars also.
And how about the livestock guards on average? How much are those each?
That I haven't dealt with a whole lot. We don't generally deal with these. The livestock guards, there's only 5, Mark, that are maintained by Pennington County. The rest are on the landowners.
It's both. The landowners are up to $300 on the maintenance or total cost on replacement. The Forest Service helps us out with, we do the labor.
Okay, so Mark, sorry, I should add come up. We don't buy them, so on average, how much would they cost the highway? Because you have the system overview of 143 livestock guards. What do you mean by that? Just the?
Mark Chalk, Pennington County Highway. We have 143 livestock guards. About half of those, or a little over half, are Forest Service cattle guards that are in the Black Hills National Forest. In those cases, they help us out with replacements. They provide the materials, and we have an agreement with the Forest Service for maintenance and replacement on those. The other half are basically private ownership, and then when they need repairs or replacement, in the case of repairs or cleaning, Pennington County, under the Pennington County Livestock Guard policy, we would clean them or do repairs on them and charge a landowner up to $300 on the cleaning of them. When it comes to a replacement of one, it's the landowner's responsibility to supply the materials, and the Pennington County will do the labor to replace them.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Good question. With that, we'll move on here. Bill, and it will be Sean here after June 12th. So,
Who's Sean?
Sean is our new engineer that we hired.
Sure. If you'd like to come up, I don't know if any of us all met you, sir. Sorry, Sean. We're going to put you on the spot today. Good morning. And your name, sir?
Good morning. Sean Smith with Pennington County Highway Department.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Good to meet you, Sean.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to our team. Team Joe Miller Highway Department and Mark Schock.
He's got big shoes to fill. With that, our engineering department does surface road inspections every year. So they look at 12 distresses with ratings and extent of distresses annually. Right now, we're spending about $1.3 million on our asphalt roads to maintain them. And our pavement condition index, or the PCI, is staying relatively flat. It's not improving, but it's not declining. As we talked, Bill and I and Mark, and Sean talked this morning, there's going to become a point, much like our bridges, where the pavement's going to start needing to be replaced. So if we don't get ahead of that and start spending some more money on overlays on pieces of pavement that need overlaid sooner, if you don't get to it soon enough, you end up totally reconstructing the road, which is a lot more costly than just doing an overlay. So we should be budgeting about another $500,000 towards this on an annual basis. Over the past 7 years, we've done about $1.7 million. Has been contracted over the past 7 years, which, as I stated, it's a modest improvement, but it's relatively flat. Excuse me. With that, so this is the big one. Bridge inspections and ratings and postings. Basically, the DOT determines when we have to rate a road, or a bridge, and we hire a bridge engineer every year to inspect these bridges. It's federally mandated that they be inspected every 2 years. So we've split that 127 in half. So we do half 1 year and half the next. So 21 of these bridges are structurally deficient. What that means is any bridge that has a component that is in poor or worse condition. So a component is the deck structure, the driving surface, the superstructure, which is the components under here, and then the substructure, which is generally the abutments. And then we have some bridges or some culverts that are so large that they are considered bridges. For a culvert to be considered a bridge, it must have a span over 20 foot, and then it turns it into a bridge. So it may look like a culvert, but it's considered a bridge. Currently, we're spending about $175,000 on on rehab projects. And about $321,000 on reconstruction or replacement, for an average of about $500,000. So that's a very low number to be spending on bridges. $500,000, we'll get one replaced a year. 88 of our bridges will need to be replaced over the next 20 to 25 years. We got 44 of them which are over 50 years old, and then 44 of them that are between 45 and 50 years of age. So replaced shortly after the 1972 flood was a majority of them. The lifespan of a bridge is between 50 and 70 years. And like I said, the large number of our bridges are deteriorating due to, the replacement of them after the 72 flood, 1972, 73, 74. If you take the 88 bridges times $500,000, that's we need to spend about $2.2 million over the next 20 years on bridges alone. So with that, we'll move on to, I had that on the next slide there.
2.2 annually, is that what?
That's what it would take to replace all 88 bridges in the next 20 years. Got ahead of myself there. So like, as I said, the average yearly expenditures on bridges has been approximately $500,000. That doesn't include the surveying, engineering, or construction engineering administration costs, approximately $50,000. So that's pretty small potatoes in a $10 million budget and a $500,000 bridge. So 10%. So as I said, the overall condition of our bridges is in a decline. They're not getting any younger, I guess, is what I'm saying. The average need for our budget to increase is about 1.2 to 1.5 to get to that $2 million to fill our duty to maintain the bridges for the safety of the traveling public. In 2015, the county commission chose to take the highway fund was supplemented with $2.4 million annually. I think that's an average number. They took that away from us, and we have not got that back since 2015. This is our budget history. With that on that last slide, we have numerous projects in the pipeline. Sheridan Lake Road being one of them. I don't know if anybody's drove out to Sheridan Lake Road here recently, but they have started clearing trees and some utility work on Sheridan Lake Road, so it's ever changing. Some of the projects that we've got in the pipeline are Sheridan Lake Road, South Rochford Road reconstruction, the South Rochford Road Bridge. And with that South Rochford Road reconstruction, the last estimate we had on that was probably done 5 or 6 years ago at, I think it was $11 or $12 million at that time. So if it's anything like Sheridan Lake Road, that number's only going to go up because it's been put off for so many years. We also have Deadwood Avenue reconstruction, which is a joint project with the city. We have a safety project on Nemo Road, going out Nemo Road right there at the Pennington Meade County line. We also have a joint project with Meade County on 161st Avenue going north out of New Underwood. There's a safety project on Radar Hill Road and 1416 intersection, which you guys just approved the build grant application for the planning grant here. I think it was last commission meeting or the one before that. Sherman Street Bridge, Thunderhead Falls bridges, and then Sonnenquist Lane bridges are all bridges that are in the pipeline. This will take our reserves. Once all these projects do get off the ground, it'll take it down to around that $1 million mark, which is kind of frightening, I guess, to let it get down there. But we've had these big projects in the pipeline for a long time. As you look at this graph here, it kind of shows that our revenues are more than our expenditures. But I guess with this, every year we've put into the budget some funds for a project that didn't go. Last year, we had Deadwood Avenue in there in our budget for $1 million. That didn't go last year, so that went back to our reserves. In 2018, we put $4 million in there for Sheridan Lake Road, which didn't go that year. 2017 and 2016, DeGeest didn't go. So every year we put money in there for a project that we think is going to go, and it ends up not going. So our budget, it shows that we're not spending as much as our revenues bring in, but at the same time, we always put money back in there because a project didn't go that year.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
That's a good point, Joe. I mean, just for people that like to look at graphs and charts, a lot of those projects that I've been in Sheridan Lake, I can remember, we put away in savings and reserves in order to get those projects, and so they can be very misleading when you look at this. Maybe that's what happened in 2000. I wasn't on in 2015 when that got taken away, but thanks for pointing that out, because there are multiple projects and so we carry over to do those. I appreciate that.
Yes. So after all these projects, it's going to be difficult to save for those big projects again without additional funding. With that, I guess we can kind of go look at some of the bridges that we have. that are structurally deficient. We just got some pictures of the bridges, and we'll go through those. This is a bridge that's on Slate Prairie Road. I don't recall what this one was rated at. Mark, did you happen to write that down?
Your build?
Well, yeah.
1950.
So this one's built in 1950. Next one here. This one is our famous South Rochford Road Bridge. This one was built, I think, in the 40s. So what's failing on this one is the substructure. The wooden abutments, as you can imagine, don't last very long with the conditions up there, the freeze-thaw cycle, and being inundated with water. This one is on Mystic Road. Rust on the bottom, deck wear. This is another wooden-topped bridge. Oops. This is Sherman Street in Silver City. The substructure, again, is failing, or the superstructure, excuse me, is failing. The pylons, what year was that one built?
1967.
67, so.
I'd say, Joe,
Yes.
is that the one in Silver City?
That's the one to get into Silver City, yes.
Because I was up there about 3 weeks ago, and I was talking to the folks at the fire department. And they said that when cement trucks come in there, they can't cross that bridge now. They have to park on one side and pump the cement across the other side, which is kind of
costly,
odd.
This bridge is actually Sonquist Lane Bridge. This one is, we've got in the works right now, engineering or design for construction next year. That one is on a one-way in, one-way out. There's about, I believe, 9 homes on the other side. This one is on Nemo Road. We're replacing the double T's, or some double T's on this bridge this year. This one is also on Nemo Road, and we are replacing some of the double T's on this bridge as well.
So Joe, when you say you're replacing some, they're taking the surface off and pulling the T out and putting a new one in, or what?
So this right here is what they call a double T. So this, from here to here, is one deck unit. So there's concrete surface on the top of here. And these double T's fail. You can see here kind of how it's chipping out there. And then the surface on the top fails, the joints fail. Bill could probably get into a little bit more of what exactly fails on the double T's, but you can actually replace these double T's independently.
That's what I was asking. Yep. So you pretty much resurface the whole top because you got to take that off to pull out the T.
So we've actually taken all the asphalt, or we are in the process of taking the asphalt surface off of these bridges. We found that the water gets in between the asphalt and the concrete and delaminates the bridge decks.
Okay. I didn't realize that you could replace just the T's instead of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Those double T's, are they manufactured locally, or do they come from Sioux Falls?
I believe they're manufactured at Forterra, which I don't know which plant they. Mitchell, Bill says. So. This one is on Thunderhead Falls. That was weird. We're currently getting a hydraulic study done on this, so we can then do the design on it next year is when we have it budgeted for. This one is also on Thunderhead Falls. You can see it's on wooden abutments, concrete, and wood abutments just don't last as long as we'd like them to. So these are all, I think the two on Thunderhead Falls, were they replaced after the flood, Bill?
I would think so.
So these two bridges actually survived the flood, amazingly enough, being where they're at. The next one here, make sure I got the right bridge. You can see the double T, how it chipped off there. The salt and water is not kind to the concrete. This is on Heisiga Road. This one, I think, all may have seen pictures of this one. This is actually on Nemo Road, right past the fire station. So it's a little scary seeing that one. This has got some deck replacements or double T replacements on it as well. This one is on Country Road, so north of town. I believe it's between Elkvale and Seeger there. Again, wooden substructure, just doesn't last. This one is on Hammerquest Road. This bridge is actually our oldest bridge at 104 years old. It's a concrete arch. So when we go to replace it, we're going to have to get SHPO or the State Historical Office involved and figure out what we need to do to get this one replaced. So it's pretty amazing that a concrete one lasted that long, but it has. It's a fairly low volume road, and it's actually a pretty small bridge, I believe. So
Joe, I know nothing lasts forever, but obviously back 50, 60, 70 years ago, they did a lot with wood pilings and wood substructure and so forth. Do you use any wood anymore with the replacements?
No, not that I've seen. I mean, actually we went out to bid or for our annual construction projects. That's one of the bid items, and nobody bid on it this year. It's still available if we need parts for some of these older bridges like deck units and stuff like that. But it's just not something that's practiced anymore. It's concrete or steel for bridges.
Okay, thank you.
This one is on 159th Avenue, so just west of New Underwood. This one is on 164th Avenue. I don't recall exactly if that one's north or south of New Underwood, but you can see there another failure point on them double T's. They start failing, and if they get any kind of vibration in there, that concrete just starts chipping away. This one is on Sage Creek. Again, as I stated earlier, it looks like a culvert, but it's considered a bridge because it's over 20 feet in length. And as you can see, it was built in 1959. This one is on Heather Road Bridge. So if you remember back a couple commission meetings ago, we asked you to sign a resolution to submit for some federal funding that came available. This is one of those bridges that we submitted for that federal grant. So we should find out, I guess, probably, I think, June or July if we qualified for any of those grants.
Those wood bridges look pretty cool. Wood, but they don't last as long.
Yeah.
Just the way they're built.
Yeah, and wood just doesn't last the elements. I think Mark told me a story once that he got off the railroad and thought he was done working with creosote, and he got put on the bridge crew as soon as he come to work. So thought he was done, and he was mistaken, I guess. So this next one is on Paulson Road. We also applied. This is also on that federal grant program. We applied to get this one replaced. And then the last one here that you're looking at is also on Paulson Road. These two go into a ranch that is needed. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions, board?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews.
Not so much a question as obviously this is coming to us just before budget time, which I have requested so that we can see where we're at financially as far as taking care of roads and bridges. And this isn't something that that Joe and his staff just put together recently. We've been really working on this for about a year and a half of keeping everything current during our discussions and so forth. And there isn't any doubt, I said a year and a half ago or nearly a year and a half ago when I came on this commission that one of the things that I was going to work toward is trying to bring that funding up to that level that was needed. And I am going to propose a wheel tax. However, even the wheel tax that I think that's going to be proposed is not going to bring sufficient dollars to take care of the needs. So but we're working on it. I think it's necessary. I appreciate the time and effort that Joe and his staff have put together on this, and it's good, solid information. So thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Gary. We have different committees we go to. I think they'd be good presentations even for Fire Service Board and other committees, just to get it out in the public a little bit more as well. So anybody that has committees that they go to, it might be nice to have that presentation done from Joe at those committees as well.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Thank you. And I appreciate Joe, because, we had you scheduled in to do the North Rapid Civic Association and all the stuff come on, but I think that's one of the things that I'm going to stress and probably ask a lot of you is probably more presentations as this goes forward, because I think a lot of the citizens just don't realize the type of shape that they're in and how old they are and what's going on. And so the more information we can get to people, the better informed they are. So
Absolutely.
Thank you. Bill Welk, I got a question. So when is your last day, sir?
The 11th of June is the Thursday.
How long you been with us?
Sunday was my 10th anniversary.
Nice. You've done a lot of good work for us, Bill, and I just wanted to recognize that I worked with you even when we're at the city and now the county, and you've been just pleasant to work with, and you work very hard, and we're going to miss you a whole lot.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
A whole lot. You've been a valuable person to Pennington County in many ways, and you've always played team. And when I've had you on committees, you've been very valuable for giving information. So, going to be well missed, sir.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks,
Sean.
sir.
We'll do a good job for you.
And Bill, you can always volunteer.
One of the first questions I had for Bill is he going to remain in the area? And he said yes. So I think what Lloyd just said, talking about volunteer, we may be giving you a call, Bill.
Okay.
Thank you for your service.
Sir.
Bill?
May or may not answer, depending on the grandkids. From what I've been told, anyways.
We'll make accommodations for the grandkids.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome
Thank you,
again,
Joe.
Sean. You're filling some big shoes. All right, next we have items from Human Resources.
Madam Chair, can I take a moment of privilege real quick? Just a short deal. Under the liquor licenses, I didn't catch it, but my employer has 4 applicants on there, and I think it was during the consent. And I just wanted to note, I'm not going to go back and change anything, but I just wanted to note that MG Oil had 4 liquor licenses on there. I normally would pull it and abstain, but I just wanted to bring to the public's attention that they were on, my employers were on there. Normally I would have abstained.
Okay, thank you. John? I just have one question, John. Most of these on the ratings and stuff, wouldn't we usually do this at budget cycle?
So this helps them with the budget cycle as part of the compensation with first John Morrill, Pennington County Human Resources. Okay. So as part of the compensation review, there were a number of position titles and ratings that were proposed. We just needed to have them approved so they could actually include those for their budget projections for next year. So some of these were based upon the actual Gallagher study. Some have been reviews that were requested by the departments. So you'll see some new job titles. You'll see some additional ratings for those job titles. So it's either part of the compensation review, or these were done as separate requests after the review had been completed.
I guess on that, for me personally, it seems like you would put where Joan was in the scale and what a D61 or in this case a B23 would mean, because it's kind of hard to read that you just put the title. You put C44 or B23. Where were they at in 2020, and where will they be at in 2021? That might be helpful when we're looking at where they're moving to, and it's also nice for information to see. Obviously, we're going to be paying $500,000 instead of $2 million next year, which is good. But it'd be nice to see where their salary was in 2020 and where their salary is in 2021 when you're doing these proposals.
Okay, so these won't necessarily impact their salaries unless their rates were below the new scale. These people will just be in this new job category, placed on the ratings that you have been approved probably a month ago with the 7-step scale. So there isn't any wage calculations with this at all. It's just actually the analysis of positions. So some of these were positions that had been, again, completed under Gallagher. We're just asking to have them added to their department so they can use them for budget planning.
So
Positions rather
B23,
than personnel.
Yeah, this isn't about the people themselves, not at all.
okay. So, when Holly goes C44, because she's a commission manager, her salary isn't changing? Because you're putting names, I thought you put, maybe you didn't.
I think for most part, it's about positions within the departments and then the structures within those departments as well.
Yeah. Main commission office.
So these, for the most part, would have been included in the Gallagher information that we had reviewed probably back in March.
Right.
What we're asking now is just to formally have them added at those ratings. So as we go through the appeal process, and there's still 4 more departments that I have that are requesting to have some positions reviewed. So some of that is actually adding positions that were already done with the study. Some of that is being reviewed, the actual suggested ratings for those positions. None of these are directly tied to a person.
So we change, basically you're changing, you'll be coming with motions like this to change all the positions where they should be, and everybody else's positions are already created in Gallagher.
That's
That's
correct,
what you're
ma'am.
doing today.
Yes, so
Okay, sorry,
what
Joe.
we had done in the past, anytime we had a new position or a position title change, it would go through the comp committee and then come through me to you.
Okay.
That step is no longer there, so now it's just me presenting
Okay.
the title changes and the ratings.
Sorry, I
Madam Chair.
misunderstood. Commissioner Roskinek.
John, thanks for responding to my email this weekend and that clarification.
Yes, sir.
That helps me do this transition into the Gallagher 7-step program.
Yes, sir. No, my pleasure, sir. So I think the questions are great. Any questions you have about certain positions or the financial pieces of it, I'd be more than happy to help. Some employees, as we had discussed earlier, are going to see fairly substantial increases if their position is rated below their new scale. So you'll have some that will maybe be receiving for the 2021 calendar year, fiscal year, anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000. Others may only be receiving a couple of $100s for that first year. So the big piece of this whole process, I guess, is just getting people onto the scale for next year, and then they'll actually see a standard increase the following year in 2022.
So commission manager didn't change from C44, so basically commission manager, where was it at commission manager in 2020, and where's commission manager, meaning like you said, are they going up or down? So we won't see that till budget because it'll be a person in there.
Correct. When we actually do the budget pieces, you'll see the dollars that coincide with any of these potential changes in titles.
And when we put that down, Ms. Holly, we'll have what they made in 2020 and what they made in 2021. Okay, thank you very much.
No, great questions. Thank you. Anything else? So I've got a number of memos. There's 5 departments that we've gone through this process with. Again, Commission Office, Natural Resources Department, Planning Department, Register of Deeds, and Treasurer. There's still a number of positions under the law enforcement through the Sheriff's Office we're reviewing, the IT Department, the Dispatch Department, Equalization, and then one additional for the Treasurer's Office that we didn't have completed. So there still will be some additional over the course of the next few meetings that you'll see these coming back for review and approval. So at this point, I'd stand for any other questions. I know the memos there's 5 different ones, but the motion could be whatever you'd prefer to actually consolidate those if needed.
Are we still looking around that 500,000 mark in changes?
Yes, so that's going to be the total impact as long as we move people onto the scale for next year without any additional changes. Some of the pieces that we do need to consider and still have out to the departments are the compensation administration rules, because that will control whether that's a $500,000 increase next year or if they still have the rules under Condrey. That would increase that exponentially because there's greater freedom for movement under the Condrey rules.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
One thing I'll say, John, is through this process, I think it's good because I think all the departments are doing an internal review of their positions and what the workers are actually doing. That's what we're working with today, is changing job descriptions are, find out what they really are doing, take a good analyze on what they're doing in order to put them where at the level where they need to be. So it's not so much, as you said, the person, it's the job that we need to really look at. And a lot of times we get comfortable and we just kind of write it out. And that's why I think this is a good point with the appeal process. If you don't think it's right, then we sit down and we go through what job descriptions are and what's to go. So that's, I appreciate this.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Moved by LaCroix, second by Drews. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very
Commissioner.
much, John,
Thank
for
you.
clarifying. Items from Office Manager, proposed resolution for Black Hills Area Council of something. Sorry, Holly.
No worries.
You can clarify that.
No, this is just a continuation of the discussion from the last meeting, that if the commission is considering proposing any resolutions, now would be the time to give staff direction to start working on that and start preparing those, as the board will need to act on any by the end of next month.
Yes, ma'am. Questions, board, or resolutions? Lloyd, do you have anything on those?
No, the only thing that we've discussed, Holly and I have discussed, is of having that next meeting here again, doing a sack lunch type thing in order to read the resolutions and be able to do the social distancing, because getting these resolutions to the state's very vital for legislation for next year. So I think Holly sent out an email requesting that, but with everything that's going on, normally you rotate around, and that's where we're at with that. So if you have any contact with any other county commissioners from other counties, please stress the importance of how soon it is. They need to be in, and the thought that we're going to be holding it here to be able to do the social distancing.
Holly, you have any thoughts? Okay. All right. Next is items from the chair or commission members. Let's start with Lloyd today. We'll do committee reports and.
Me and Ron, Ron's a lot better at giving a description on the forest board than I am. He took some good notes. We did that on call last week with Scott Guffey, and it was more of an informational. I was trying to do 2 meetings at the same time from virtual, so I was in and out. But I also attended the Zoom meeting for the Youth City Council, which was good. In fact, today, the Youth Council is doing a Zoom meeting with some youth from Casper, Wyoming, that are talking about starting up their own youth city councils. So they're actually, people are looking at them, what they're doing. Otherwise, I don't really have anything else to report. Most of the meetings have been Zoomed or canceled or by email, vote by email, so.
Just a couple things. The Elevate Board met last Thursday morning. The main purpose of that really was Tom Johnson, CEO of Elevate, explained what the Elevate office is trying to do in helping businesses, including ag businesses, as far as we're going through this. They have a number of programs that they've put into place to assist, and I would just encourage any and all businesses that feel that they need any help, that they reach out to them for that assistance. And it may not be monetary assistance, but it'll be a program that can be developed to show them maybe a little bit clearer path as to how you recover from something like this. The other thing that I have is obviously our Congress is working on additional stimulus packages, and some of them are not so good. They certainly have included counties in some of these, but it's hard to get on board supporting some of those packages, even though that portion of it may be serve well for counties across our nation. But I see as of yesterday, another bill is being proposed. Again, one of the things with the original stimulus package is that for counties is that it impacted only counties of over 500,000. That's the only way you could apply. Well, obviously in South Dakota, we don't have any counties with over 500,000 in population. So this is an attempt to remove that language from that earlier legislation that was passed so that it can be directed towards this here has three different elements to it as being proposed. It's 1/3 based on population size, it's 1/3 based on infection rates, and 1/3 based on revenue losses. And obviously, those revenue losses are one of the key ingredients for all counties. One of the problems with one of the packages that have been proposed is that it has nothing to do necessarily with the virus. It's trying to bail out lots of different government entities that were failing financially in the first place, and now they're trying to capitalize on this particular event to try to regain dollars and make themselves whole again, which is not necessarily a good practice for anybody, and something I certainly cannot get on the backing for. So, but it's going to continue on. It'll probably go all summer long into the fall with different packages that are coming out. So I just advise you just try to keep as current as you can. And when you see something that is beneficial, make sure you reach out to your congressional representatives and make them aware of what's good and what's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. A couple of things. We had the department head meeting. Holly can verify some of this if I'm wrong. So our goal is to try to open around July 1st. It's a goal. We don't know if we're going there, but we didn't think June and we didn't think May for our departments because we have furloughs, we have many things going on in between there that basically would not work for a lot of the departments. So, and then returning to full access, what is that going to look like? Are we open partially? That would be up to the board, but we'll have meetings with the department heads, screening of public still. How would it look like to have the employees come back to work? Their workspaces, basically, do they wear masks? Do they have to wear masks? There's lots of questions to be asked once we start deciding we're going there. But at this point, if it's okay saying this, the goal would be around July for the departments, and hopefully we'll follow that as a commission and keep getting up to date from them, and then from our department heads, and see how we can make that happen and transition back into opening the building. So then the other is the Fire Service Board, been working hard with them on budgets. We had a budget meeting again last night. We had the last two Wednesdays. We had teleconferencing meetings. I'll have another meeting on Thursday just to verify. We have, again, 500 volunteers. We have 6 departments with no funding, fire service with no funding that we need to do other things for. They actually charge themselves, what do you call it? They have to pay fees to be a volunteer in some of these 6 areas because they need funding sources. So they actually charge themselves to be adding to their budget so they have money. They have done the bylaws like we wanted them to do and got those done. So they are good to go. Holly's going to help us with the funding source for the workman's comp because remember, we're doing it from general funds. So we have to do some other different areas like 5 different transfer type things for it. So they do have a budget committee. They don't just have Jerome do it, which is nice. So they have a great budget committee. I'll just tell you that all kinds of great ideas. We're working on Title III funds. We're getting $5,000. We're working with the sheriff for maybe getting a little bit more of that. They did get a $25,000 grant a while ago that they used and that was from the children's home that they were using for many different things, because remember, they were having shortfalls in some other areas, so they used that. We're trying to build up reserves because we have some pagers and different things we have to move forward with, so we will probably be seeing where we could get some help from the commission for some of those reserves for future, and where those reserves would come from if we needed help. Anything else? I don't think so. Other than that, I think we're good.
Well, as Lloyd said, we attended the via video conferencing, the timber stakeholder meeting, which basically is the meeting between the stakeholders, which would be the sawmills and the Forest Service. Obviously, the Forest Service, with the pine beetle and forest fires, they're just saying that the next 20 years, it looks like that timber harvest is going to be a lot lower than expected, and that could result in possible closures of some sawmills. And as Scott Guffey reported a couple of weeks ago, that's 1,400 jobs and millions of dollars out there. So that was my second meeting. But anyhow, it's productive, and I would hope that there's going to be a compromise when it's all said and done. The final draft will be August the 15th, so we have until then to try to work with the private sector and the Forest Service to see if we can't find a solution that'll work for everybody. Then via Zoom, I attended the building committee last 2 weeks ago, and we have another meeting on Zoom today, and probably the thing that we're working on most is to see what we want to do with that LaCrosse Street property. So we've got some realtors lined up and an auctioneer, and see what direction we want to go with that facility. Put some money back into the coffers, hopefully. And then I attended a pre-construction meeting for Sharon Lake Road. We met at the Whispering Pines Fire Department, and we did not go inside. We all stood in the parking lot. So we did our social distancing, and I got to meet the general contractor out of Miles City, Montana. Met a couple gentlemen with the Forest Service. So as Joe said, if you drive down Sharon Lake Road, you're going to see a lot of trees missing. So the Sharon Lake Road is in full swing, and as I tell people, if you don't like delays, use Highway 16.
There you go.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSanto.
Question for Ron. Where's the pressure coming from to reduce the harvest up in the Black?
Well, it's a study evidently done. The Forest Service hired the scientist, and the scientist, we're trying to find out who gave them the parameters to use, because they're using a high mortality rate, or higher than Scott thinks they should be. And so that's the one component that if you adjust that a little bit, you might get a whole different output. But
absolutely,
evidently it's some scientists in Idaho and Colorado.
And are the scientists taking results from the pine beetle devastation in Idaho and Colorado to basically reflect what they want to do here?
That part you'd have to ask Scott. I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't think so. I think they're just looking at some of the history in the Black Hills, and the data that they're using would reflect what is actually happening here in the Black Hills, is my assumption on that.
Yeah, that's what it is, Ron. I think they chose two regions. It's information from our area that they got, but some of the numbers of mortality, as Ron stated, that some are higher, and there's some other stuff in there too that's been in discussion with, as far as slash piles and clearing. And one question I think one commissioner had was, if they're board feet, if they're allowed 190 for that year, this year they're not going to be able to get that. It's going to be more like 140. Do you get that credit? Well, no. You can't carry over from 1 year to. So there's some work to be done, but you did a really good job, Ron. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm learning a lot of acronyms I never heard before.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, as I said last time when Scott talked, this is of great concern, and you would think that the Forest Service would start taking some notes on history and look at where thinning has been done properly and how healthy those forests are, where the thinning has been done properly, and the result of less disease and far less fire damage when they're thinned properly. So, wow. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm going to
Keep us
piggyback on that,
posted.
I will.
Ron, because we were in Spokane and I did their forestry board meeting there, and they do things a lot differently than we do in our Black Hills. And one of the subjects that was brought up in our meeting is how short-staffed the Forest Service is, because, and I can't remember, do you remember what the number was, like 40 people?
Right.
And so when things got to get inspected, you're talking it's dragged out, and to get someone hired is such a process that it trickles down to everybody. Prime examples in Spokane, the contractors do go out and inspect the trees and mark them and so forth. They got that trust in there. Not here. It's the Forest Service, so you have to wait for them to go out and scan the property or the area and mark the trees. So
Gotcha.
Spokane's doing some really good things.
Yeah.
So after the meeting, I went up and talked to the foreman at Nyman, Rushmore Forest Products, and he wasn't there, but he had a couple gentlemen that work underneath him. I gave him my card and sent him with the county, and give me a call, and let's see what we can do to work together so that we're all working on the same page and everything's transparent.
All right, good job.
Commissioner DeSanto.
Attended the library board meeting via Zoom. They had brought in they're replacing 2 air handling units at the library. And so we'll refer them to Air Handling Unit 1 and Air Handling Unit 2. They got Air Handling Unit 1 in and found out that it was defective. So they had to take it back out, and now they're waiting for it to be replaced, and they can't put Air Handler 2 in until Air Handler 1 is done. So that particular situation as far as climate control in the library has been held up a bit.
Mark, how long has it been since they changed those air handlers? You know?
I think that it's been, if I remember correctly, 21 years.
I thought when I was on the city council, they did some of those about
How long ago
10
was that?
years ago. 10 years ago.
10 years ago? Could have been that short. I'm not positive, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
right now, when the last time it was done, but it was quite a while ago, from what I understand.
Yeah.
The drive-through is incredibly busy. Since the library is not open for the public, it's up by 97%. So there's a lot of people coming through the drive-through and picking up books at the drive-through. And then the staff and the board is in discussion regarding reopening and what protocols to use for safety as far as reopening the actual library itself and for meetings and that sort of stuff. So attended the Central States Fair Board meeting. They're still planning on having the fair. I think we'll have probably a very solid decision by our next meeting in June. And we're just working on ways to have that fair and yet keep it safe for everybody and make sure that everybody has a good time but is safe. The stall barn's up and running. Deb went out and visited the stall barn, and it looks great. There's very little left that needs to be done to have that fully functional. And then they're already holding some events out at the fairgrounds, following CDC guidelines and so forth. And so they're starting to book some events that are coming in out there. Rodeo events, roping events, that kind of stuff. And then the practice arenas are open and also being very heavily utilized out there. So, and then the last thing, I went to the police officer and law enforcement memorial that they had on Thursday morning over in front of the public safety building. And it was, I would say there was probably about 40 officers, both from the police department and the sheriff's department there. And quite a lot of media, and had a couple of speeches by different departments, the sheriff's department, the police department, and highway patrol. And it was a moving memorial. We've lost officers in the line of duty, and it's has a huge impact on the community. And so it was nice to see that they were honoring those officers that we've lost in the line of duty in the past, and their families. So, and that's it.
Thank you. I saw that on TV. Just watched the special report.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome. Just the prayer
I drove by
and.
that when I was going to our meeting here, and I wondered what
was going on.
Yeah.
Yep, I heard about it, and then they said they were going to have a special meeting or a special report on the TV, so I did watch it. It was pretty good.
I think it would have gone on a little longer, with the exception that it was raining all over us. So.
Yep, I did see it on TV.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
It always happens, you know that. I did cover the 4-H meeting for Mark because he had conflict with the fairgrounds, and I forgot that they approved their budget and they were in for the discussions. And I did pass on. They had some at our last meeting that your discussion on what to do with the stove. I passed on the advice from Gary and yourselves of what to do. They're going to see if they can get it fixed, but if not, they. Good. So I passed that information on for you.
Well, I appreciate it, Lloyd, and thanks for attending that for me.
The other thing, too, they plan on having the fireworks at Mount Rushmore this year, and a lot of places are getting very booked because of that already. So it's bringing forth a lot. And then I'm supposed to figure out in the next couple of days if they're doing the rally or not. So, all right. Next, we have approval of the vouchers. I need to abstain for $936 from the Price LLC. So I'll have Gary go ahead and.
Do I have a motion to approve the vouchers in the amount of $4,120,158.29?
So moved.
Got a motion from Commissioner LaCroix, second from Commissioner Ross Connect. Further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed with one abstention on the Price Motel by the chair.
Thank you, Gary. Next is the Board of Adjustment. Do we have a motion to open the Board of Adjustment?
So moved.
Moved by Drews.
Second.
Second by DeSanto. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We moved right into that and scared that planning. Hi, Jason.
Taking a break.
You're up, Jason.
Maybe after the variances.
Give me just a second here, please.
After this consent, maybe, Lloyd, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have it on your screen, but not the main one.
I do. I thought it was. Holly, what's the speaker request on this one?
What's that?
Speaker request?
Not on this one, ma'am.
Okay.
Next one.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
This is the Shealy's. Holly, do we have them online?
They're supposed to be on the phone. She's working on getting them on the phone right now.
Okay.
If you want to do a reminder about speaker request forms for planning.
Okay. If anybody would like to do a speaker request form and would like to speak on any item, please complete a speaker request form located in the bookshelves in the back of the chambers and return it to the commission office manager, which is Miss Holly to the left of the dais here, located at the lower right side of the dais. So that'd be Miss Holly.
Thank you.
So if you'd like to speak on anything. Miss Shealy, are you on the line for us?
Yes, we are.
Okay, Pat. So we're going to have Jason start, and then we'll ask you folks to speak on anything you decide that you would like to speak on this variance. Okay, Jason.
Morning, Commissioners. Jason Fennison, County Planner. Agenda item A is variance 19-03 to reduce the minimum required front yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet to bring an existing pole barn building, retaining wall, and propane tank into compliance in a limited agriculture district. The applicants are Patrick and Marlene Shealy. Site location is approximately 1 mile southeast of the intersection of Neck Yoke Road and Marie Lane on Wallace Street. The board has seen this before in January of this year. where you approved vacation of section line VS 19-03 to vacate a 33-foot wide portion of a 66-foot section line right-of-way. Criteria for variance request. The zoning ordinance requires the Board of Adjustment to determine that 4 specific criteria are met. Those criteria are on the screen for your review. I'll read staff's response to each one of those, starting with number 1. Staff has verified through a site visit that there are no particular conditions as noted above which warrant approval of VA 19-03. There appears to be adequate room to place the pole barn in other locations other than the front of the subject property. Number 2, this setback variance would not grant a use which is otherwise excluded from the property zoned as limited agriculture district. Number 3, strict application of the zoning ordinance would require the applicant to meet or exceed the 25-foot setback from front property lines. And lastly, number 4, granting this setback variance would allow for a reduced setback in a limited agriculture district, which is not in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. At the time of staff report, staff has not received any complaints or comments from the public regarding the variance request. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review. 2 comments came back, one from County Highway stating that they oppose the front yard setback variance since it impacts future road development. And the second comment was from the Rapid City Public Works Department stating that they do not support this variance request either.
Okay.
Staff analysis. A survey of the encroachment was completed by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers. According to the survey, the existing shop building encroaches approximately 2 feet into the setback. There's also a retaining wall and a propane tank encroaching into the setback approximately 10 feet. If the Board of Adjustment chooses to approve variance 1903, staff recommends 1 condition be included.
Okay, so Jason, we already vacated the section line.
Yes,
so now we're looking for this Board of Adjustment variance because there's 2 feet of cement in the.
No, actually the pole barn, you can see up there on the screen, the pole barn encroaches into that 25 feet.
Oh, it has to, for the 25-foot setbacks, it's the 2 feet that's encroaching into
Correct.
the
For the front yard, there's
section
a
line.
25-foot setback.
Yes,
Yep.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Sheely's, Pat or Marlene, please. Any discussion? Joan, are they on the line? Hello?
I'm on the line.
Okay, sorry. Okay, Miss Marlene,
I was just having trouble with the phone.
That's okay.
We appreciate everything everybody's done. We just want to make sure that we don't have to cut that 2 feet of concrete off. It sounds like everything else has been approved.
Okay, any discussion, board?
So that's really all we have.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Drews.
I'd move to approve the variance 19-03 with the 1 condition.
Motion by Drews, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ron. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion
No.
carries. Oops, motion carries with 1 no. Motion is approved. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews?
Pat and Marlene, just appreciate your patience throughout this course of this thing. I know you had to go through a lot of work in order to accomplish this, and probably didn't accomplish exactly what you started out to do, but appreciate the time and effort that you put into this too.
Thank you, Gary.
Appreciate y'all's support.
Have a good day, folks.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item B, please.
Hi, good morning. Christina Proetti, planner. Item B is variance request 20-03. The applicant, Keystone Adventures, have requested to reduce the front yard setback from 5 feet to 0 feet for an on-premise sign in a highway district or highway service district. The applicants have been working with the Planning and Zoning Department and the South Dakota Department of Transportation for a few years now, trying to get this to go through. Initially, the DOT had some reasons why they didn't want it, but the applicants have been working with DOT, and DOT is now in favor of it. Some criteria for variance requests. I have them up on the board, and I'll also read the answers. We have one. Staff has verified, based on the zoning ordinance, that the applicant's proposed sign is considered an on-premise sign. The applicant has stated that the reduced setback will allow for better visibility and awareness for passing traffic. The South Dakota DOT does concur with this. If Keystone Adventures did meet our current zoning ordinance setback, it would actually cause more of a safety issue, and that's from DOT. Next, that the variance does not grant a use which is otherwise excluded from that particular district. The setback variance would not grant a use which is otherwise excluded from property zoned as highway service district. Next, that due to the specific circumstances or existing conditions, strict application of the zoning ordinance would be an unwarranted hardship. Strict application of the zoning ordinance would require the applicant to meet or exceed the 5-foot setback from the property lines. Lastly, that granting of a variance is not contrary to public interest and is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance. This particular granting of this setback variance would allow for a reduced setback for a sign in a highway district, which is not in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. Staff has routed this through interdepartmental, has routed it, and we received comments back a few times. The only contentious one was from DOT, but like I said, they've worked with them, and DOT is now in favor of it. If the Board of Adjustment does choose to approve variance 20-03, staff recommends including, that 2 conditions be included.
Thank you. Do we have any speaker requests on this, Holly? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner.
I'd move to approve with the 2 conditions.
I think you do have
Madam
speaker
Chair,
requests.
I'm sorry, you do. The attorney for the Breens is here.
Did you fill out a speaker request?
Yes, he did.
Yep.
Where's that at?
Advance.
Do we have that?
Yeah, you had it yesterday.
Right here.
Oh, I thought we fill it out here, because I have
no,
my
it was
paper.
submitted yesterday, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I thought a hard copy was
Sorry.
there for you.
Okay. Nathan? Sorry, sir. I can't read the last name. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a hard copy of the speaker request form if you prefer that.
Nope, you're good, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I just didn't know your name, and I didn't have the back of this here. Or I probably did, and
I pronounce Shequin. Nathan is fine.
thank you, Nathan.
As Holly mentioned, I represent the Breens, Jim and Jan Breen, and they actually own an adjoining property through a trust. The Breens are in Arlington, Texas, and I'm asking to speak on their behalf. Jan Breen, I believe, comes from the Hardesty family, and that's the nature of how they've landed with this property here. You may see from the packet some of the materials, particularly I think there's a map layout. This old U.S. Highway 16 used to kind of snake up toward. Thank you. This is actually a good image. You can see in some of the lines, the right-of-way lines around the highway. It used to S-curve and snake up and down. And when the old highway was constructed, the Breens were immediately adjacent to the highway. So they are immediately west of where this proposed sign is to be located. The Breens at that point conveyed the kind of half-moon piece next to the proposed location to the DOT. And then the piece immediately to the east was owned by Forest Service at the time, subject to a highway easement. The DOT then reconstructed US Highway 16A, straightened it out, and at that time, the portion where the proposed sign is to be located reverted to the United States Forest Service, subject to that highway easement. The Breens were involved with Miss Danielle Shire Banks, Mr. Bussey's predecessor at the time, and the DOT in what to do with this piece of property when the highway moved and DOT vacated, DOT straightened the highway. At that point, the DOT said, we're going to leave this as a highway right-of-way until all you folks can reach an agreement on it. So that you'll see in between the two parcels there is a break, and that provides access to the Breen's property. You can see the approach on the aerial map. Then fast forward to about 2014, and I appreciate allowing me to give this background. I do think it's important to consider. The property to the south was purchased from Miss Danielle Shire Banks by Mr. Andrew Bussey and Keystone Adventures for a helicopter business. And the DOT then was working with Mr. Bussey and the Breens to try and sort out this piece of property. The DOT said they would not abandon it. And then in 2019, I believe Mr. Bussey, in January of 19, acquired a piece where the proposed sign is to be located by purchasing reversionary rights through the United States Forest Service, and then having the DOT abandon that portion. It was actually replatted at that time, and the southern portion of that piece of property where the approach lies was retained by the DOT. So they platted it, and they took the northern portion and abandoned that to
So Nathan,
Mr. Bussey.
Can you tell me the bottom line why the Breens are opposing this?
The bottom line is that the sign they view will act as a barrier between them and the highway. Their property is zoned as commercial, and they intend to market it as commercial, and what we believe is an off-premises sign. I understand it's the same tax ID number. The DOT views it as an off-premises lot, and the Breens consider it to be off-premises because they divide it by the way of their access. They divide the two parcels. So they believe this sign will, in essence, create a curtain barrier between them and the highway and make their property less marketable to commercial buyers. They do not oppose a sign on the southern portion of the access. I believe that's in concert with the DOT's suggestion. They don't have an issue with a sign on the south portion of the gravel access there.
So did they see the sign? It's kind of pretty open.
Yes, they have seen the sign.
Like a huge billboard. It might be what they're saying, but that's a pretty awesome looking sign, but also a very, you can see a lot through it. It's not like a great big huge billboard where it'd be like adhering a business. In fact, it's actually a pretty nice sign. So,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Roskinek.
What is their Breen? What's their legal access?
That is their legal access right off of Highway 16.
Is it a easement? Is it a right of way?
They have an easement through. That's a DOT public right of way, and they have an easement to get to their property through.
How wide is that easement?
That I don't know, Commissioner Roskinek. I would assume the easement may be 66 feet wide, although I don't believe the parcel looks that large.
Would the sign, if we granted the variance, would the sign be within that easement?
I don't know exactly with the proposed location, but I will assume that that Mr. Bussey plans to erect the sign within his lot lines, so outside of the easement. I will note, in looking at some of the ordinances, it seems to me like if it is an off-premises sign, it will require a distance of 1,500 feet from any other off-premises signs. The Breens have an off-premises sign, a billboard on their property, and Epic Signs, I believe, owns the property immediately to the north with a billboard for Prairie Bear Winery. And so I think if this is an off-premises sign, it should be done through a conditional use permit to make sure that it's sufficient distance from some of those signs. We've got 3 signs and a business kind of jammed right in there, bottlenecked right at that approach. And the Breens are going to look like their traffic is going to have to go through in between the sign and the business.
Well, this morning, about 7:30, I went and looked at the property. And I just want to make sure that I looked at the right property. So that north parcel, is that currently being used for parking? Has that been improved for parking?
I don't believe it is used for parking at this time. I believe the DOT has improved the access approach only, but my understanding is, I last looked, it's probably been a few months. The area to the north is still green area, it's still grassy. I don't know Mr. Bussey's
Well, hypothetically, if it was used for parking, could we consider that an integral part of the helicopter
that it may
business?
be considered on premises?
Yeah.
I don't know. Perhaps, I suppose if that's necessary
sir.
for the business.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess my only comment is this seems to be merely the grant of a privilege for the applicant. There is no undue hardship by strict application of the zoning ordinance. I don't believe it's in harmony with the zoning ordinance, that being setbacks, and I believe should be 10 feet if it is even as an on-premises sign. I read the ordinance to say that there's a minimum of 10 feet in a highway service district, but all signs must be within 5. So I think there is even a 10-foot setback here. And if we're talking about an off-premises sign, I think it's too close to some of the others. And it should be, I think, done through conditional use permit. So thank you for your time.
Any other questions for Nathan, guys? Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, sir. If we have more questions, we'll call you up, Nathan. Mr. Bussey, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Andrew Bussey on behalf of Keystone Adventures. Just to fill you in a little bit on the history, this is our 3rd year working on getting a sign. We went through Pennington County. Pennington County did verify it is on premise with 5-foot setbacks required. DOT originally did not concur with that finding, and so we had to bring in 50 dump truck loads of fill to produce a parking lot on that north parcel. We have brought in the dump truck loads, and we have started to revegetate that. The gravel's coming in today to meet the qualification by the DOT. Secondary findings by the DOT after we did that work, they agreed with Pennington County that would technically meet on premise. And I think maybe the state's attorney could clarify that for you if you had any more questions. So we're asking for a variance request for 5 feet setbacks to that east property boundary. We need to be good neighbors, and we're willing to waive that request for that 0 foot variance from the south boundary to give the Breens the additional space that they're asking on that right-of-way entrance. If everybody's in agreement with that, we feel like it would actually help the Breens if we push the sign forward and give them more space to their back property. I'll keep in mind that Half Moon's currently owned by the DOT as right-of-way, and so we're actually a lot further from the Breens property than we might. It doesn't adjacent touch our property, the Breen property to the west.
Mr. Bussey, about the most persistent man I've ever seen in the planning area. When I first met you, you were trying to get a helicopter place up there first, and that took you a few years. And now it's taken a few years for a sign. So I'll just tell you, your place looks amazing. I haven't drove up into your pad or used your helicopter services, but I can tell you driving by, you keep your stuff immaculate. So I'm very proud of how persistent you are and how long this take you just to do first your building and now a sign. So on that note,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
So Andrew, what you're talking about being a good neighbor, but and changing the 5 feet, the 0 setback back to the original 5, is that what you
Yeah,
just
we
said?
met with our concrete contractor last night, and he thought we could actually get our piers a little bit deeper than the 6 feet. And so our initial concern for that southern boundary variance was being able to get the new piers into solid soil. Keep in mind, we brought in 50 dump trucks full of fill. And so our concern was pushing too far north. And so he thinks we can get a little bit more depth with an auger extension. And so I'd be willing to concede that 5 foot variance request on the southern boundary if we could just work on that east boundary with a 0 foot variance.
Okay.
And that would allow more room. If we pushed it east, that's more room away from the Breen property to help them out. And then we'll go north 5 feet as required by Pennington County ordinance for the Breen request for that right-of-way. And just keep in mind too, Commissioners and Madam Chair, we've worked with the DOT trying to do a land exchange for that southern boundary to give the Breens more access, and that's what held up this request for close to a year. The South Dakota Department of Transportation, I don't know what happened with their talks with the Breens, but eventually they just told us to proceed with the sign on the north parcel, so that's why we're here today.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner?
I'd make the motion to approve with the 2 conditions.
We have a motion to approve by LaCroix,
Second.
second by DeSanto. Any other
Madam Chair.
discussion? Commissioner Drews?
I got a question for Commissioner Roskinick, because Commissioner Roskinick sent pictures this morning, and I'm basing my opinion on that. Has anything changed with the discussion that of being able to move it?
No, Commissioner Drews.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Mr. Busty and Mr. Nathan. Thank you. Next is the closed Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Moved by LaCroix, second by Drews. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Consent calendar. Looks like Jason is doing consent calendar today.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Jason. I'm Jason Fennison, County Planner. The Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Agenda item C, second reading of Major Plan Unit Development Amendment 19-06 for Rockerville Goldtown LLC. Brian Hammerbeck is the agent. Approval is recommended. The Board of Commissioners approved the first reading of this Major Plan Unit Development on May 5th, 2020. Agenda item D, minor plat 20-08 for Gordon and Jennifer Sabo, and staff recommends approval.
Is there anybody from the public who wish to remove any items from the planning consent agenda? Is there any commissioners who wish to remove any items from the consent agenda from planning? If not, a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Moving by Roskinick, second by Drews. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Agenda item E is layout plan 20-09.
Okay.
Applicant is H&H Land Company No. 2 LLC. Agent is Brian Hammerbeck. Surveyor is DC Scott Surveyors. This property is located south of the intersection of East Highway 44 and St. Germain Road. The applicant's agent, Brian Hammerbeck, applied for layout plan 20-09 to combine portions of 3 lots into 1 lot in order to create tract D of Hook J's subdivision. As the properties sit today, you can see I've identified those for ease of description by property A, B, and C on your left of the screen. All 3 of these properties are zoned general agriculture district. Lot A is currently 10.41 acres. Lot B is 20 acres. And Lot C is 60 acres. Proposed Lot D of Hook J addition is on your right in the green border. That will continue to be zoned general agriculture district. Will consist of 40 acres. Will have special flood hazard area on the property. There are no structures on there, and proposed access is to be taken off of Derby Lane. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review. There were some comments that came back from the county floodplain manager, register of deeds, and county environmental planner, but those are included as conditions of approval. The proposed lot does appear to meet minimum lot size requirements for a general agriculture district. However, the remaining lots will be below the 40-acre lot size minimum for general agriculture district and will need to be rezoned appropriately, or an approved lot size variance will need to be obtained. The creation of the proposed lot will increase density on Derby Lane, and the applicant will be required to improve Derby Lane to Pennington County road standards or obtain approval of a subdivision regulations variance to waive these requirements. Staff finds no significant issues with the applicant's request as it appears to be in harmony with existing lots and current land uses in the area. And staff recommends approval of layout plan 20-09 with conditions.
We have a motion or discussion.
So move.
Moved by Drews, second by LaCroix. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item F, please. Miss Cody, or Miss, I said Miss Cody. Mr. Cody?
Good morning.
Morning.
Item F is road construction within a section line right away, CS 20-04. It's to construct a road within a section line right away to provide access to a property. The applicant is Jessica Earhart. There is an existing road that they're looking to extend. They're looking to access property up actually in Meade County.
Is that a driveway or actually a road, Cody?
This is what the existing road looks like today. It's roughly 14 to 18 feet wide. In places, it just depends on where you measure. Some places you get 14, some places you get 18, some 16. It just varies. They're looking at approximately opening up 1,300 feet. They are proposing a 16-foot wide road with 6 inches of gravel. Ditches would be 2 feet and one culvert of 18 inches in diameter. They are requesting to waive some Ordinance 14 standards, to not submit road construction plans, to construct the road to 16 feet instead of 24, and to not construct a turnaround. However, talking with the applicant this morning, there are going to be some additional requests that she'll have for some waivers, for some portions of the ditch and some portions of the gravel surface. But that would be an item G thing. It was routed around through the department. Highway department is not in favor of waiving Ordinance 14 since 225th Street could be extended 0.7 miles east of Bennett Road and would provide access to a major area for development. Also, Ellsworth Air Force Base came back and said that the property is within the 70-75 sound contour area. So home technically would be allowed in accordance with the ACU's guidelines. However, they would not be in favor of any future development in the area, if possible, as it is located in the base contaminant water plume and the home is encroaching close to the base. It could cause problems. Staff did perform a site visit. There is an existing section line road off of Bennett Road. This is what the approach off of Bennett Road looks like. The existing road looking down, like I said earlier, it's 14 to 18 feet wide. It currently provides access to 2 properties.
Can you take it back to the last one? Leave it there, Cody, for a minute. Thank you.
1/2 mile from where the proposed road extension terminates is Ellsworth Air Force Base. And the road could potentially service more lots in the area. However, the Air Force Base would be opposed to future development in the area. Staff is recommending approval to construct a road within a section line right-of-way, which includes constructing the section line right-of-way to County Ordinance 14 standards with 9 conditions.
Thank you.
Madam
Discussion?
Chair.
Commissioner Roskinek.
I know it's a road, but it looks to me like a driveway, because if we go, another 1/2 mile, we hit the Air Force Base?
Yeah. Correct. If you look in this picture, you can see the tower. This is right the property that would border this section. The section to the south is like 160 acres, and then there's another section like 160 acres, and then you hit the runway of Ellsworth Air Force Base.
So, if I felt that section line right away needed to be used in the future for, to access other properties, but that's not the case, so I personally don't have a problem with it.
So they plan to build it at least 16 feet on the second motion that would be going on here?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner LaCroix.
I'd make the recommendation of approval with the conditions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Move
Or
approval by LaCroix.
Make the motion, yeah.
There's a second?
Second.
Second by Roskinek. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Item G, please.
Item G is a request not to submit engineered road construction plans to have a road width be 16 feet instead of 24 feet wide, and to not construct a turnaround. And here it is, put in here that any waivers granted by this board to this section of the road, it'd be only for access to that property, and that anybody else who wants to take access on it would have to come in and request waivers and gain approval as well. The applicant is requesting, and she'll have to come up and talk about it too. There are certain areas that she wants to waive some ditch requirements and some road surface gravel requirements, and she is in the audience.
Okay. Ma'am, if you'd like to come up. Miss Jessica, how are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Good. Any discussion you'd like to tell us about your road?
Well, as you can see, the ditches, I don't believe, are 2 feet on either side, so I wanted to waive the 2 feet depth of the ditches. I wanted to go to the spec for the ordinance around the culvert, but the rest of it's pretty flat, so I wanted to do like 2 inches of gravel.
What is usually our requirement, 4 to 6?
6 inches of gravel is the main requirement.
What is on there now, Cody?
I'm not sure. Do you guys know?
Is it 2? Is it 4?
3.
I don't think that it's 6.
With that road, that Joe Miller, Pennington County Highway, that is not on the county highway system, so I don't believe we have any data on it. An issue with 2 inches of gravel is with travel, or I don't know what the use of the land is. It's going to turn to mud in a matter of time, and then it could potentially drag mud out onto the county road. So definitely would not be in favor of that.
So we had a discussion on one of the roads that they were doing. It was more like a driveway. I think we made them do at least 4.
That was on 153rd out just east of the airport there. And I think we went with 6 inches. I guess we'd have to go back and look, but I think everything was to county, to ordinance 14 except
the width.
The width.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Board?
So Madam Chair, so if I understand this right, you just want to go the 16 feet opposed to 24. So I don't have a problem with that. We've done that before.
And the gravel. She wants 2 inches.
And the what?
Gravel, she wants 2 inches on the gravel, which I think needs to be more.
Yeah. In that area, it's a lot of shale and gumbo.
So,
gravel, I agree.
Okay. And waive the ditches?
I think 6 inches.
No, waive the ditches, the roadside ditches. You want to?
I think we could waive the roadside ditches out there.
I agree.
Joe? You're looking at us like, okay, let me speak on this.
Just looking at Bill, it's pretty hard to say. Just because it's been that way for many years doesn't mean it works. I guess we'd have to take a closer look at it to see what the drainage is. But being it's not a county road, it's not having ditches is only going to hinder the driveway in the future. It's not going to allow water to shed properly, and ultimately damaging your investment. So I guess that's a decision for the board. So,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Thanks for all the information, because I think we're trying to do something on the fly, and I think she wants to do the right thing. She wants it to last. My notes on this item I think we agree we don't have to do the 24, but I think you want a road that's going to last. And as Joe just said, we don't want mud on our main streets, and so you're probably not going to like this, but I'd like to have you sit down with the highway department and come up with a recommendation to give us so we can do it and do it right. So we may not get everything we want, but we're not going to vary from other, unless you guys got a motion that you think would work.
Well, so far we got a 16-foot road with 6 inches of gravel, and then we have culverts or ditches in there that we need to figure out. So,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews.
Jessica, how much traffic are you anticipating on this?
That's
what I thought.
Our property only.
Yeah.
There's 3 drivers.
Okay.
In and out every day. That's
so
it.
her investment would be, I'm sorry, Commissioner Drews.
So, Joe, the question is there a way of tapering that gravel? I mean, having it 6 inches where we start, where we leave the county road, and then tapering it down to 4 or something to lessen the load a little bit. Does that help or not?
I ultimately, I mean, it's her driveway, and I think this road leading up to the county road, how many? There's a couple hundred feet, correct? So it's 1,300 feet up to where she's proposing to
Okay.
open up more. So ultimately,
so-
it's her investment. I would suggest against it, but ultimately, it's her investment.
Okay, but
And
it's 1,300 feet is what we're talking about, huh?
Correct.
So there's about 1,300 feet that's already open from where you access Bennett Road to where she would extend it another 1,300 feet.
Okay.
So I would,
Yeah, we don't want to drive on muddy ruts either, or, trash the land.
and her investment would be her investment, meaning if she didn't want to put the ditches and stuff in, she would have to just keep putting gravel or drive on a muddy road, so.
Right.
Yes, I'm not against not doing the ditches, but.
I guess my only comment would be, in the future, since it is a section line right of way, they've all got potential for development.
Yeah.
And that, with allowing these variances, especially in the section line, it very well could come back to bite the county in, maybe not 5 years, but 20 or 30 years down the road when.
Ellsworth's gone away?
What's that?
When Ellsworth's gone away?
Because
it's up north. Yep.
So I just want you guys to keep that in mind. It's not the here and now. These section line right of ways could potentially be developments. Ellsworth is not for it, but it doesn't mean a developer's not going to try and go in there. And like Bill made the comment on our initial comment that we're not in favor of waiving these at any rate. But we realize that one person can't build the road, but there's got to be. I think Cody and the planning department's come up with a good solution to that. With it, anybody else building on that road has to come back and ask you guys for waivers as well. So
there you go. So discussion or motion?
I would move for approval with 6 inches of gravel at a 16-foot wide road and no
ditches,
cul-de-sac,
ditch changes.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item H, Cody. Thank you, Miss Jessica.
So item H is Ordinance Amendment 20-01. It's to amend section 507 of the construction permits to super exceed section 507A erosion and stormwater control to amend section 511 fees and to set fees regarding stormwater permits and of the Pennington County ordinance. I guess we'll start off with the Planning Commission. Heard this last Monday and they recommended approval. I guess I don't know how you guys want to go through this. Do you guys want to go through it page by page? Do you just
any
specific
questions? Yep. Any questions or motion?
Madam Chair, what we did at the Planning Commission is we went through page by page, but I would probably ask them any highlights probably to point out.
Okay.
Be the highlighted.
This actually took us, when we were doing this, a year to get this this ordinance to come through, because we had a lot of stuff we had to run through Michelle and some other changes. So we had a great committee doing this, and it's finally come through because we're doing a lot of changes. So I appreciate all Michelle's work and the planning department's work on this, because the 507 construction permits were a little bit crazy to call it a construction permit instead of the erosion and stormwater control. So I appreciate everything you've done on that, Miss Michelle and the planning department. Board?
I'm okay with.
You have a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Drews, second by Ross Connect. Lloyd, did you have any questions on the highlighted areas?
No,
in case I missed
that's
anything.
how we did it at the Planning Commission. So I was conveying.
Thank you, Lloyd. Motion made by Drews, second by Ross Connect. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next in my item I is request for refund of penalty fees. John. Go ahead, Jace.
Ivan Davignon.
Davignon, there you go.
On March 6, 2020, Mr. Davignon submitted a variance request to the planning department and paid $1,220 in fees, which included $800 in penalty fees. He is requesting a refund of those penalty fees.
I would
These
move
were-
to approve.
They were for those, sorry, Commissioner. Okay, there's a motion made by Mark DeSanto, Commissioner DeSanto. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Lloyd LaCroix. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
I got a question. This was
those
for the two sheds, correct?
Correct.
How did we get a penalty fee of $800 on two sheds? And the reason why I asked this is because I had to pay a penalty fee on a shed that was on a property that I bought, and it wasn't that much.
Right.
I paid the permit fee, and then I had to pay the penalty fee, which was $50.
Mm-hmm.
So how is mine different from?
Yours was double the fee for that shed based on the square footage. That's
Okay.
how that determination was made. I believe this was a culmination of late fees for the floodplain development permits.
Okay.
And
okay.
variances and building permit construction costs.
Thank you. That was running through my mind when I was reading it. I'm going, wow.
Like, whoa, that's a big item.
Yeah, it is. So.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next is items from the public. Did we miss anybody? Want to speak from the public? Okay, we have Phil. Phil, if you'd like to come up, sir.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. Philip McIntyre, 4741 Greenfield Lane.
Thank you.
This all started roughly 3 years ago with my property. I've gone down to Equalization, asked about getting it reclassified. It's permanent. I mean, there's no title. It's converted to real estate. There's no running gear, no tongue, axles, brakes, wheels under my home. And I got told no. I got told once a manufacturer, always a manufacturer. By HUD guidelines, a mobile manufactured home is designed to be connected to utilities year-round for occupancy. It is supposed to be towed on a chassis to more than one location if need be. Some states use forms for modulars. If you go down to your local county office, fill out a form. When you convert it to real estate, it's converted to modular, because in HUD's eyes, once there's no title, that home is permanent. It cannot be towed down a city, county, state, or federal road. And in some of the HUD permits, when you buy a manufactured home, they're classifying it as going to a manufactured park, not to a private property. So some of these HUD codes are geared to, if you alter your home from factory specs, it cannot be occupied or sold. If you don't have the HUD plate on the end of your home, it cannot be occupied or sold. Well, that's a pretty broad spectrum for not having that HUD plate. Once you take your home, put it on private property, on a HUD certified foundation, convert it to real estate, it is considered permanent, the same as a site or stick built home, which some of us live in. That's the way HUD looks at it. Now, in talking with Mr. Rittberger at Equalization, he has adamantly told me, no, it will not be changed. It will not be reclassified. And then in talking with Commissioner DeSanto, he mentioned, come down to the commissioners meeting. So that way, everybody's together in one spot. Everybody hears everything at the same time. Now, in the paperwork that I turned over to you folks this morning, Commissioner DeSanto had mentioned, you find me a banker that'll come down and say, yes, we'll finance modular homes. Well, I found tons of them. Problem is they're busy right now with everything going on with refis and everything. But I did acquire some letters from them. Vern from Affiliated Mortgage said he would have no problem whatsoever financing a modular home. He says the guidelines on them, There's hardly none. It's the same as a site-built home compared to manufactured. I've talked with people at rural development. They sent me the guidelines stating that rural development can finance modular homes, whereas they cannot with manufactured. And also within the paperwork, I've talked with Brent from South Dakota Housing. South Dakota Housing takes all of the mortgages from the banks, the financial institutions, puts them together, scrutinizes them, looks at them, says, yes, these will meet, and they go from there off to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae, which in turn are the last ones in line that scrutinizes them and buys them and insures them. All these folks have said, yes, modular homes will be financeable, treated the same as a stick-built or site-built home. Now, just recently this year in Meade County, a friend of mine that's a realtor contacted me and with an MLS listing asking me how it is that this home could be listed as a modular. He sent me the pictures. I looked at the pictures. I've been in construction for over 30 years. Matter of fact, the wife and I figured it out this morning. I'm coming up on 37 years in the trade. I saw these pictures, and they don't even meet building code. This house that sold as a modular had 2x6 floor joists, 2 foot on center, on a permanent foundation, and it was listed by the county and sold as a modular and got FHA financing. Kind of mind-blowing when you look at something like this. Since then, I've called other counties. I've called Custer County. They said, yes, if a manufactured house sits on a permanent foundation, there is no title, it's considered a modular, it's permanent. Talked to Yankton County. They said the same thing. I got a hold of 2 gentlemen at the state property tax office, and they said, yes, that's the way we feel it is. If you have a manufactured home on a HUD certified foundation, it's converted to real estate, we look at it as a modular. But getting it reclassified within the county, it won't work. He's adamantly against it, and I'm asking the board to please take and make him change his ways. Under section 3282.12 of the HUD Housing and Urban Development Code line out of Title 24. The purpose of this section is to provide the certification procedure authorized by Section 604H of the National Manufactured Housing Construction and Safety Standards Act, under which modular homes may be excluded from coverage of the Act if the manufacturer of the structure elects to have them excluded. And then it goes on and talks about the requirements. Any structure that meets the definition of a manufactured home at 24 CFR 32.7 Section U is excluded from coverage of the National Manufactured Housing Construction and Safety Standards Act 42 U.S.C. 5041. If the manufacturer certifies as prescribed in paragraph C of this section, and it talks about construction of concrete, metal, treated lumber, or wood, or grouted masonry, which is the foundation. Before that, it says the structure is designed only for erection or installation on a site-built permanent foundation. Every manufactured home made after 1970, that since they got away from the 2-inch walls that everybody still thinks that they're built out of, has been designed to be put on a permanent foundation.
So Phil, your purpose today is to have us do what, sir?
Have manufactured homes that sit on private property on HUD-certified foundations that are converted to real estate, reclassify them as modular homes. There is roughly 7,000 homes within the county of Pennington County that sit like this, that people have tried to go to the bank to get financing. Well, they can only get 40% of what the title of the home is. And by title, I mean the age and the make. Site and stick-built homes, they get 80%. Everybody is saying, HUD, on down the line, once it's permanent, it's treated the same as a site or stick-built home.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Lloyd? Our Commissioner LaCroix, sorry.
You know, when I first seen this, I was trying to figure where you were going what the problem was, because I personally grew up in mobile homes, and I've got 5, and I've had to finance half of them through a local lender because they're not good for secondary market. If I wanted to do secondary market on 2 of the ones that I got, which are considered modular, they're on permanent foundations. They're the piers, got the piers on them. One, I have to get it certified by an inspector. They have the tie downs in the right spots, all that stuff to be HUD certified. So I was trying to figure out where you're going, because you're right. To get the secondary market, you know, you got to get that certification and so forth. So I'm trying to figure out how, and I've got 2 properties where the title companies which told me, instead of having the land separate and the house separate, combining them, and that's what the equalization did, combined them. I can't say that they're doing what you're talking about, but it was made one bill combined, but then my taxes went up. You know,
your taxes drastically go up.
So,
They go up by,
and you know, and that's what's happened. So I'm interested in what you're talking about, and I'm willing to sit down and go through this with Shannon. Also, it may not be the result I want either, because I've been doing it both ways. I've had to do
when you took your manufactured home and your land and you married the 2 together.
Yeah, I did that to
and
2
your
of them.
taxes went.
Because they're double wides
Yep.
and on the foundation
Yep.
and piers. Yes.
That's because you were converted to real estate.
Yep.
You are taxed the same. Now, the equalization office doesn't care what it is.
And that's
It's
exactly
just a structure on the land.
And that's exactly what the title company tells you too.
Yep. And then I've talked with Pennington County and American Title Company, and they said it's a permanent structure to the land. It's treated the same as a stick built. Now, that's where we run into our problems. In my 3 years of fighting this, I've gone from the county clear up to HUD and clear back down to where we are today. And you know as well as I do, once you have a foundation that's certified, you have your 8 anchor spots tied to your foundation, you're permanent, correct?
Yes.
So by being permanent, why are we still classifying them as manufactured when they should be exempted as a 3282 and made modulars?
Well,
it's the progression of time is what I look at.
My experience, yes, there are some modulars that are built just as good as a stick-built house, and they've got manufactured homes that are built inside a plant and hauled to site. You know what I'm saying? But not every manufacturers are all the same. You know, I understand, you know, some have different standards, but there's a lot of them out there that are still particle wood flooring and
but like the one that I was telling you about that sold earlier this year, that was a 1972 double wide that was reclassified to a modular. I guess I should have said that, and I didn't. I'm sorry. But you go anywhere from the mid-70s, everything is 2x4 walled or better, depending on where it was built. The floor joists are 2x8s. I mean, so the quality is there.
So I got a question for you. You say that they marry the land and the title into one,
yeah,
but
just
you're talking about the reclassification, and Shannon saying no, we're not. It's still going to say mobile home, which, quite frankly, I don't care what Shannon says. It's the bank that I go to who's going to finance it that's going to tell me.
Well, every bank is going to tell you you will not get financing unless you do it in-house. And the interest rates are from 7 to 9% on a home loan in-house and 10 to 30% down. I'm sorry, but
so
how many people got that kind of money?
But, well, I understand, because I've grown up in them and I bought them, and I understand your dilemma, what you're talking about, but I guess what I'm trying to understand is you're wanting the classification. Oh, so you're wanting Shannon to change the classification so you can take it to the bank and say that's why.
Yes, and there's VA members, veterans, that have come out and tried to buy homes, not just mine. There's one out on Johnson Siding that tried to buy too. And the FHA overlays shut them down because of their classification as manufactured homes at the county level.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
The problem actually lies within the progression.
The years.
This is what I understand from Shannon's definition and then also reading the HUD definition. If, when that manufactured home was delivered to that piece of property and sat upon that foundation, which you say it was, they had not titled it as a vehicle, but placed it on there, and whatever transaction happened at that point in time, designated it as a modular home, we wouldn't be having this issue. The problem is that whatever, was it Centennial or who was it that
manufactured?
Yeah, who manufactured it?
I couldn't tell you who did mine.
Okay.
I've tried to find out, and I've done tons of research, and I can't find it.
So anyway, when they brought it out there and they placed it on this foundation, when it was originally placed on that foundation, they kept it titled.
It had a serial number.
Yeah,
That's
it had a
the problem.
serial number. It was titled. That's the problem. That's
Exactly.
the total problem. And what Shannon is saying is, I'm not going to fudge on my paperwork and say that this property doesn't have a title. Now, titles are kind of confusing because we have a title to our home, which says we're the owners of the home, and then we're talking, this thing has a car title. This thing has a vehicle title. And Shannon's not going to write in his paperwork that this thing does not have a vehicle title. That's his problem. His issue is, I'm not going to lie just to make something look better. Even though Shannon has even told you, he's not in disagreement that it's hooked to a foundation and it's been there ever since it was put on there. But the problem is that he doesn't want to say that it never had a title. He doesn't want to take the title off of the record, so to speak.
So maybe this
because it makes him a liar.
Maybe this should be handled on a state level.
That's where I've taken it to state.
They said
and I got told it's got to start at the county.
I feel sorry for you, sir.
I've got 3 years of chasing my tail, and the scenery doesn't look good.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's that serial number. It's just like a stepchild, a bad stepchild. You just can't get rid of it.
August 20th, 2010, the title was surrendered to the state, and it was shredded. So there is no record of the title on my home anymore because it was converted to real estate, just like so many more within our county.
I probably got,
Yeah, you got the same thing?
Yeah.
So if they want to call it a manufactured home, well, then we got to put a title back on it.
Well, and Shannon's going to say that when it was converted to real estate, that was only for purpose of taxation. It had nothing to do with a designation of what it is. It's only for the purpose of taxation. In other words, you've got a house on a piece of property. You're not renting a lot from someone, and that's how we assess the value of the house for taxation purposes, but not for loan, how the bank looks at it purposes.
And as Mr. Commissioner DeSano just said, yes, it's done that way for taxation. We're taxed the same as a site or a stick-built home. But heaven forbid you get any of the benefits of having a site-built or stick-built home.
But your assessment also reflects your assessment is based on, I explained to you on the phone, that your assessment is based on what the Department of Equalization feels your particular house would sell for on the open market.
Yeah,
that's how they come up with the assessment. And they assessed it at $90-something thousand, and you're asking $187,000?
Right around there, yes.
And so you are being assessed fairly. You're being assessed at what they believe that house should sell for. You would rather not, I mean, it sounds to me like you'd rather have them assessed at $190,000. We've run into this problem before where people
Well,
are
everybody
upset that
knows that
it's
your
assessed too
taxes,
low.
what you pay for your assessed tax value and what your house sells for is two different worlds.
Or most people don't complain. They usually say, thank you, Jesus, but.
Well, those people haven't been trying to sell their home for 3 years.
I'm not trying to be rude to you, sir. I'm just saying, most of the time they'll come in here and go, okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think this is where I see the solution. We get the county assessor, we get Sam Benny with First American Title, we get a realtor, and we all sit down in a room and try to work together, because obviously we're not experts at all this, but it'd be nice to get an expert in each field to see if there is a solution for this in the future, because I don't know that we'll ever get it settled today.
Well, Lloyd and you
I got a
guys
realtor
work at
sitting right
these.
here.
Well, we're still missing.
We can't settle anything.
No, I understand that.
Public
But
comments.
Mike,
I feel your pain. I just
Mike,
don't know what
did you
the
have
solution
anything
is.
to say today? Come on up, sir.
We'll let these people go to lunch.
No, you're good. That's what this
Mike
is for,
Sackmeyer.
Phil.
And I am a local realtor with the real estate group. I met Phil about a year ago when he had the house listed on the MLS. I brought a potential interested party over to look at it. Over that time, that party didn't buy it, wasn't able to buy it because the financing that was available with it classified as a manufactured home was at a substantially higher interest rate and required a greater down payment than she'd otherwise been qualified for had she been able to buy it as a modular home. So since then, it's fallen through. I've taken a few other folks over, prospects at times to look at the house, and many of them liked it a lot, but ran into the same difficulties with the financing aspects. And so Phil asked me to come today and just share those insights with you as an overlay to the overall problem. There's, as you know, 7,000, that's Phil's number, can't verify that, but a lot of folks that are in this situation, even though they may be permanent homes, they tend to be at the lower end of the price scale for where homes are, and we desperately need more affordable housing. I have a handful of clients, and every one of our 50 realtors in our office has clients looking under $150,000 for a house. That's all they can qualify for, but that's at the 3.5% interest rate, not at the 7% or 8% interest rates. So if we can find a way, if other counties can do this and we can't, then we're missing something. And I don't know all those details either, but I'd be happy to help in any way that I can.
So maybe Lloyd and Ron could get with you guys and get the appropriate people and work with Shannon and see if there's any changes based on other counties and things that they do that we can change. So.
Well, for what it's worth, my house has got a serial number.
Lloyd and Ron.
There are cases, and this may be the situation, and I explained this to you on the phone the other day, is that the bank's not or people are having to come up with a much larger down payment to get the loan because there's a variance between what the bank thinks it's worth and what these people want to pay for it. If they want to pay $185,000 for it, that's fine. But when a bank looks at loaning the money, they're going to look at your house and say, we think it's worth $110,000, for example. Mm-hmm. We're not loaning $185,000 on a $110,000 piece of property. You're going to have to come up with the $75,000 difference.
And I've talked with 4 different appraisers. Gave them my address so they could go to the Zillow, look at the pictures, see what I'm asking, the whole 9 yards. Out of them 4 appraisers, I've had one guy that says you might be a little high. The other one said you're right in the ballpark for what you have, for the land, the bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, the square footage, everything. You know, when I went into this trying to compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges or apples to grapefruits. So made the phone calls, tried to make the right contacts, talk to the right people, ask the right questions to make sure I wasn't blowing smoke up anybody's wahoolie. Well, Lord knows I've had enough people do that to me on this.
Well, let me tell you, I feel your pain, and so is my wife, because she watches those interest rates, and every one of the ones that we got, we have to pay the higher interest rate on, because even if it's on a foundation. It's not the 2.3 that we'd like, and there's some different circumstances with ours, but I've looked at selling one of my properties and I had to do the same thing, get that tag, get the certification for the foundation, do all that type of stuff in order for the bank and rural development loan to do that, or so people could buy underneath that. I guess I'm kind of at a loss. You know, I understand your pain, but it seems to me more of the bank issue. And I could be wrong because I haven't spent 3 years on it like you have.
The bank will say it's the county's issue for the way it's labeled, and the county says it's the bank issue from the way they look at it. When the bank takes the paperwork and sends it to the underwriter goes directly to the equalization website to verify what the bank is telling them. And the first thing they see is a year and make. Is it a 74 site built or stick built home? Is it 74 manufactured? That right there is the number one thing that they look at. And if they see 74 modular, no problem. Then they look further into it. But if they see something other than what they want, it's done.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews.
You know, I know that you asked Ron and Lloyd if they'd be willing to serve as a group on this, and just a comment to Commissioner LaCroix. This is something that you may want to look at as being part of a resolution to take from the district. Obviously, there's inconsistency with the way this is handled by counties throughout the state, and so this is maybe something that you want to pursue from that avenue also of trying to get the counties and the state all in the on the same page.
So do you have all of our numbers still, Phil?
Oh, yeah. Got the secretary to HUD Insurance's phone number. And he's even came out and told me straight up, sell it as a stick-built home. And I'm like, send me the paperwork stating I can and I will.
So basically what they're saying is we have a organization of all the counties in western South Dakota, and Lloyd is the chair of that. He can bring that forth as a resolution to try to find solution in everybody getting on the same page, and then Pennington County, if that's okay with this board, maybe sponsoring that resolution with him bringing that forward. You okay with that, Lloyd?
I have absolutely no problem bringing something like that forward. I'm thinking, who's going to write it?
You and Holly. And we could copy the other counties if they have already have one.
They may already have one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, the state of South Dakota copied and pasted HUD guidelines for manufactured housing.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Roskinek.
The way I see this, and I've appraised real estate for 35 years, is who should decide that it's a modular or permanent should be the market. The market should be the one to decide that. If people are willing to pay that, then that's the market. That's the way it should be assessed, and that's the way it should be marketed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know what we can do about the market. Now we have to bring the private and governmental sectors together so that they realize it's a market-driven number that you're looking for. If you had 4 appraisers go out there and 3 said, I think it's worth that, then that's obviously they're using market data to provide those numbers. So it's the market that's driving this. And if a bank says, well, you know, if the market is willing to pay that, then, you know, that's what the loan should be based on.
Gordon, are we missing anything?
Madam Chair.
Hold on just a sec, Lloyd.
Yeah, Gordon.
We're going to get you.
Gordon Wendell, Equalization. I was riding horses yesterday, so I'm a little gimpy. Yeah, I know Shannon has had numerous conversations, and I was just kind of brought up to speed a little bit yesterday on what was going on. And, you know, Shannon's made it pretty clear, I guess, that it was born manufactured, or a mobile home essentially, and that's what it still is. Who is going to decide when it's no longer a mobile home. It's got, he mentioned the title. I guess we still have a title number for it. We've got a serial number for it. You know, as far as our office is concerned, it's still a mobile home.
August 20th, 2010, the state sent them a letter stating that it was converted to real estate. August 20th, 2010, Director of Equalization received a letter from the state stating that it was converted to real estate and the title was surrendered.
And we agree, it is real estate, and mobile homes are on as real estate in the state of South Dakota, but it's still manufactured. It's a mobile home. Surrendered the title. The banks require that a lot of times. In order to do the financing, you got to surrender the title, and the state maintains that. So that's not unusual at all, but they're still mobile homes.
Madam Chair, this is what I struggle with. I mean, that's a great solution Mr. Drew threw out there. We got less than 30 days. I'm thinking for that deal. And I know schedule-wise, I mean, you got the information. If you two can find something to give me to present, I think we can put it into a form to do that, but I think that would have to be on your guys' part.
Bottom line, just if that's okay, Lloyd, talk with Lloyd and then he can figure out if there's a solution to move forward or resolution to move forward at this point, if that's okay, and then work with Holly or any of us to move this forward in a way that, you know, might make sense, or if we can move it forward that makes sense. Okay, Phil?
In the packet that I gave you folks?
Yes, sir.
Towards the back is the HUD section 3282.12.
Yep. We'll have you work with Lloyd, Phil, and then bring it back to us with the resolution if that's what is determined from this, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, Phil.
Like I said, I've been chasing this for 3 years and the scenery's starting to really suck.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for coming today, Mike and Phil.
What are you going to do when you catch it?
Thank
you, folks. We appreciate you both. Thank you, Gordon.
And I'd make one more point, I guess. You know, as far as the bank, Shannon has kind of repeated over and over again that this is more of an issue with the bank. We value it as a mobile home, and the issues that he's having is with the bank financing, so.
Yeah, and some people might complain the other way that if once you do that, it might cost them more. So you have to look into both sides of that as well. All right. Okay, guys.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you. Have a good day, guys. All right.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Drew, second by Ross Connect. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.